Before we dive into the video, we should probably explain why we're covering the extended cut over the more well-known theatrical version. For the low amount of people who know this movie even exists, there's even less who know about the extended cut. The reason that this is important for the Roads to Doomsday series is that the extended cut reintroduces the Jimmy Week subplot. This isn't just extra fluff. It shifts the movie's theme from a simple revenge movie to a deep dive into the price of betrayal. In the theatrical cut, Frank is the victim of a mob hit. In the extended cut, he's a victim of his best friend's weakness. From a filmmaking perspective, the theatrical version often feels like a standard early 2000s action movie. But these added 17 minutes, including the animated Kuwait Prologue, actually fix the pacing issues and give Frank a tactical spec-ops edge that was missing. So the extended cut opens with Frank Castle in a mission in Kuwait in this really cool animated sequence. This prologue is actually a huge nod to the 90s series Punisher Year 1. In comics, Frank's tactical brilliance is forged in the military, and this animation gives us that spec-ops flavor that the theatrical cut sorely lacked. It establishes that Frank isn't just a guy with a gun, he's a strategist. Frank's war buddy Jimmy ends up saving him from a terrorist explosion, and then we cut to the present, where we meet the Saint family headed by Howard Saint, a mob boss, and then one of his sons, Bobby, goes to make a deal at the docks with his plug, Mickey, which is where the theatrical version starts, with it being a weapons deal that goes wrong and he and the other party are killed. Turns out the other person was Frank, whose death was fake and this was actually his final mission. He retires and then goes home to his family. Meanwhile, Howard finds out about Bobby's death and tries to get Jimmy to reveal who killed his son, though he refuses. Howard starts digging into Jimmy and finds out he has a gambling addiction. He meets some Cuban mobsters, the Toros, who intimidate Jimmy about his gambling history, and he ends up selling out Frank. We spend some more time with the Castle family, even getting our origin for the skull logo, it's a gift from his son. And then Howard decides to send his crew after Frank, though his wife, Livia, suggests they instead kill his whole family. For you comic readers, this is the biggest change from the source material. In the comics, the family is killed by accident because they witnessed a mob execution in Central Park. By making the hit on the Castle family intentional and personal, the movie shifts the logic of the story from a tragedy of circumstance to a targeted war. They arrive and slaughter everyone. Frank's wife and son try to escape but are ultimately killed. The gang seemingly kills Frank and lights the whole place on fire, but he is saved by a local fisherman and after 5 months returns to Florida. He moves into an abandoned apartment and then he decides to take matters into his own hands and kidnaps Mickey and has him go undercover as a mole. Mickey Duka is actually a direct adaptation of Mickey Fondozzi from the Garth Ennis Punisher comics. In both, he's the reluctant informant who provides the comic relief and the insider info Frank needs to take down a crime family from the inside. He starts investigating the family more, learning their habits, such as Livia going to a movie every week, as well as Saint's best friend, Quentin, being a closeted homosexual. Frank's first plan is to sabotage one of Howard's banks, which strains Howard's relationship with the Toros. And then Frank gets a call from Jimmy suggesting he get out of town, in reality trying to throw the heat off himself. After dealing with the rude and unwanted guests with style, Frank meets Joan, one of the apartment tenants. Frank starts setting up a plan involving Quentin and Livia, and then Howard sends an assassin, Harry Heck, after Frank, who he pretty quickly takes care of. He sabotages another shipment of the Toros' money, which leads to Howard calling in another assassin. Meanwhile, Frank is invited to have a meal with Joan and the other tenants, Bumpo and Dave. All three of the tenants are characters from Garth Ennis' 2000 run on the Punisher. After leaving, he is nearly killed by the second assassin, the Russian, in a brutal fight. The tenants of the apartment try to tend to Frank's injuries until Saint sends Quentin and a couple other men to the apartment. Despite being tortured, Dave and Bumpo refuse to give up Frank and Quentin leaves. After this, Frank decides to set his plan in motion. He frames Quentin and Howard's wife as having an affair and ends up killing both of them. Meanwhile, Frank visits Jimmy to confront him and ends up pressuring him into suicide. This is the darkest point of the extended cut. Frank isn't just killing a traitor, he's using Jimmy's own guilt and addiction as the weapon. It's a cold and calculated move that moves Frank away from Hero and closer to Punisher. Frank then decides to finally start his assault on the Saint, killing all of Howard's men and his other son, leaving Howard in a duel with Frank, which Howard obviously loses. At this point, Frank reveals pictures he took confirming Quentin was gay and that Frank planted Howard's wife's jewelry in Quentin's bed. Frank's victory here isn't through just firepower, it's through superior intelligence and psychological warfare. Frank ties Howard to a car and lets him drift into a lot of exploding cars where he dies. The movie ends with Frank fully taking on the mantle of the Punisher.
Frank Castle is dead. Call me the Punisher.
This is an awesome movie, enhanced even further by the extended cut. It might be a little long, but that length is crucial to help some parts of this movie make more sense. I would love to see Thomas Jane return Secret Wars, even if it's unlikely.